section on page Kuf Mem Gimel. Is that correct?
That's good. Umnum. Yeah, we went into that already, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, not that yet.
Is somebody recording?
What?
Bloom.
Audio?
Bloom.
Oh.
Okay. So the preamble to this section, about the principles that it's based on, is what was discussed in the earlier Maimorim. The difference between oil and shefa. And oil is a gilui of the Etzem, minhu Etzem. It is not a retranslated product. It is what the Etzem is, this is what comes in oil. Shefa is a product. So on the one hand, shefa, he gives something of substance to the recipient. On the other hand, there's a phenomenal advantage, superiority, greatness in oil, that the recipient has an element of the Etzem, an aspect of the Etzem. So even though it is only in oil form, it is not something that is being imbued in him, nonetheless, there is a tremendous effect, a tremendous superiority in this union that he relates to the Etzem itself. This oil that relates to the Etzem, the last things that were related to is the union from Pshitus. And we identified that in oil itself there are these two sides. There's a side of the oil of which the aim is and the purpose of its presence is to affect the outside. To affect the outside with the aspect of the Etzem. Nonetheless, it is still affecting the outside. Let me explain what I've just said. When the Rav explains a seichel to a Talmud, seichel clearly is of substance. When he explains a seichel to the Talmud, he's not just giving him a seichel that the Talmud is able to understand without any particular relationship to the Rav, to the Mashpia. The seichel is the seichel of the Mashpia, except he formats it in a way that the Talmud is able to grasp it and to get hold of it and make it his. But there is an aspect that it reflects the Mashpia. Except that the Mashpia here translated in a something of substance. Whereas in oil, it is a Mashpia as he is unto himself. Not in a mitzias, in a substance, a presence. And this is the difference between the two levels in Oyer. The Oyer that is to express, to be simply to reveal, and to make a statement that there is the Etzem here. And then there is the Oyer, whose function and his definition is to affect the outside. Just as we explained just now in the Mashpia and Makabel, that the Mashpia gives a seichel, but he gives a seichel the Makabel should be able to grasp and take it. So by the time that the Mashpia gives a seichel is already formed into a substance. Whereas the way it is in the Mashpia itself, it is the way he understands it. In other words, this is something related to his essential view of things, essential seichel. We shall still discuss this. I just want to bring this into where we are up to now. So what we are left with is that there is an aspect of oyer, of light, such as the light of the sun, such as the light of the neshama, of the nefesh, that is simply expressing the fact that there is a sun. The sun is making itself known. I'm here. The nefesh is making itself known. I'm here. Not in terms of being involved in what it affects. The effect is almost inadvertent. By its presence, it affects it. This is the Maki phenomenon. Now we go inside. Umnum, however, there's still left an aspect that needs to be further elaborated on. Okay, let me see. Do I have you with me? The haloi, for is it not? The hamsholim do'e v'ziv hashemesh, in those two misholim that we use to explain these two things, oyer and shefa. So it's oyer v'ziv hashemesh, the light and the shine of the sun, the oyer v'chayis hanefesh, and the light and the life force, the life aspect of the nefesh. So although we are talking about the shemesh itself, the shine of the sun, of the sun, which is what sun is. The chayes of the nefesh is what the nefesh is. So even though this is expressing and telling us what nefesh is, what sun is, not for the purpose of being effective, harei, nonetheless, behold, gam zeh, this too, even that level, hu bigdei lifoil, it is in order to have an effect. Loi bivchines gil min ha'etzem.
To remain on this call, press 1.
Not in the gil min ha'etzem
Disconnected.
aspect. Gil min ha'etzem means simply making a statement of the etzem making a statement, I'm here. Not for the purpose of having any effect. So since that the sun and the nefesh have the effect of the sun having the effect of bringing light, the nefesh of giving life, this is part and parcel of the definition of the oyer nefesh and the oyer shemesh. So we're going a little bit in circles, so I just want to bring us to a focal, to a center here. We are talking about an etzem. Mentioned many times, it's a miracle that we are able even to conceptualize an etzem in our seichel. The truth is we can conceptualize it, but we cannot really understand it. Because etzem is a truth, a fundamental truth in and of itself. Etzem is not something, in our world what we relate to is that which is developed within worldly parameters. What's a table? Oh, a table, I know how to make a table. What's a fire? I know how to make a fire. Etzem does not have that aspect that I know how to make an etzem. I don't know how to make an etzem, and I don't know how it was made in the first place. Where then does etzem originate? If you cannot make it from boil the ingredients, where then does it come from? How is it made? So as we mentioned many times, and it is incumbent upon us to reflect on this. It is a principle in our nefesh. It's a principle in our life. It's a principle in our life function, life purpose. As the Rambam puts it, we have to know as a principle, as the first principle of all thought, is that there is a first being. A first being means a being that was not put together from any ingredient that we are aware of, or any other ingredients per se. This is the first principle. Everything that exists is brought into existence by this first being. If we pursue this thought one more step, we realize that existence per se is a miracle beyond our understanding. It is the first being that allows things to be. There is no explanation how things come to be. Within the worldly context, how one thing comes from another, this we can explain. But how there is an essential being, the presence, this is beyond our understanding. This is the revelation of an etzem. This is not an etzem. This is something which is a godly effect. A first being. It is the first being that is the cause and the beginning of all existence. Now there is no explanation for existence within its own context.
If everything's originating there, why Why is not everything an etzem?
Okay, if your question is sincere, I'd like you to listen sincerely to the answer. The answer is that the etzem reveals itself in two different fashions, two different levels. One is revealing itself. That revelation is like the etzem, me'eno etzem. Another is to be effective on the outside. There it is not like the etzem. There it is formed according to the effect that it wants to have.
And that second category is obviously worldly and open to investigation and
Right.
deconstruction.
Let's take the example of the Rav teaching the Talmud. As we said initially, the teaching itself is the Rav's seichel. And we already said many times, seichel is a reflection of the nefesh, reflection of that which is higher than seichel. The teaching itself. Or maybe I should put it even more simpler. Why is the Rav go and teach? What's driving him to do this teaching? The Talmud is not begging to be taught. What's driving the essential truth in what he wants, what he has to give? This is what's driving him to teach.
Even though it's something presented to the outside, there's an essential factor within it.
That's right.
So to the
One second. Let's complete this. So there are two phases to this teaching. As he is teaching, and the Talmud has a kasha. I don't understand what you said. Please explain. There, the explanation is based on the Talmud's question. I'm at a loss. Explain to me. That explanation is not come from the etzem. That explanation is based within the context of the subject. But a teaching that is directly reflective of the teaching of the Rav, like the Chochmah, there are no basic parameters by which it is presented. It is the presence of the Rav that makes it real.
It also seems true that even though the table is a composite, it has an essential truth, some kind of essence, otherwise it wouldn't really exist.
That is very true. So now, let's understand this a little bit better. What is a table on the human level? So we spoke about this many times. So let's kind of bring it back. There is an element in table that one could not avoid. Now, it's a necessity. If you need to hold 2 plates, you want to eat soup and you want to have something else along with it. You need a table to put it on. You can't hold them both in your hand, but at the same time feeding yourself. You only have 2 hands. You need to have a table to enable this activity. This aspect of table, please follow this, is the low end of table. Because there it doesn't have to be a table, it could be a rock, it could be anything that will just hold my plate for a moment. A chair, a bench, a windowsill. This is not the full impact of what the table is. In real terms, table is a human invention. Not a practical invention, a human invention. Table is reflective of the human being who uses it. As we said many times, when two people sit down to talk, they have a table in front of them. They don't need a table there to support their plates. Table it defines a central place, and that defines, so to speak, a mokim kavua, a place that you set yourself to.
So even though the table has this essential quality, we still, like we said, can make a table. But etzem per se can never be made. Etzem is outside the gather of being made. The table can be made, but yet it has this sort of...
So this essential quality of table is called an oira or a ha'ora.
Ha'ora?
Right. Because it's not essential on its own.
Okay.
It's reflective of the human being.
Right.
So here itself, this is what we are learning right now. Here itself, in this table discussion, we've identified two aspects in the table. One is what's called a tangible and a substantive presence. Something that, like you said, that can be explained how it's made and why it's made and what its function is. Then there is a completely different level of its presence. That does not lend itself that easily to be identified or defined. And it can only be understood by the finest aspect of human seichel. That finest aspect of seichel is that which is able to conceptualize and see that the human being is an etzem, is a real thing, not just a functional thing in the world. A human being was created to be a human being, not to be part of the world. And then he has his effect on the world. That aspect, which is in a table, is also a reflection, is reflected in the table, but it's a completely different thing. This is called oir. It's just the reality of the human being that's identified, not a function. Now, here's the big challenge in what we're learning now. Both of these aspects are sourced, come from the same source. They both come from the fact that of the atzmius of the human being. The functional aspect and the essential aspect. Let me elaborate just slightly. the functional aspect. You need a table to hold several things that you need in front of yourself. So you need a practical thing of a table. Please understand the following. This reality that a human being needs to use more than one thing at a time. Not like an animal huddle. The dog eats from the floor. He doesn't need anything else. He doesn't need any environment in which to eat. A human being on the havdil has to have an environment. He can't eat without that environment. That environment entails automatically several things. A chair, a table, a place, a wall, a high, so to speak, a tznius place. A person cannot eat in the street. All of these things, even though they're all on the practical level, are reflective of the essence of the human being. But they're reflective of the essence of the human being and on a substance level, rather than the essence itself. The oil. And this is what the Rebbe is explaining, the shefa, this is what we struggle with, shefa and oil. He said oil is just the union that says what the etzem is. Does not speak in terms of any functional effect. And now the Rebbe says, however, though what we said is true, nonetheless, if we think deeper, we see that even that part of the oyer, of the presence of the presence, which is only representative of the presence, is also functionally effective. The oyer aspect is also like the oyer hashemesh. The oyer hashemesh, that which brings the sun into focus, into being, is directly responsible for light in the world. So therefore, this is also not purely alluding to the presence of the sun. It has also an effect on the world. Okay, so now let's look inside. I'm starting again from the beginning. Adain Tzorech L'Hovim is still left to be explained. The haloi is it not? The Hamsholim there is Hashem Shvei Chai Nefesh. The two Misholim of Shemesh and Chai and Nefesh. Hare Gam Zehu Bigdei Lifi. There the oil is also in order to be effective. Loi B'Bchinas Gilim in Atzam, not just the aspect of revealing the Atzam, or Gil from the Atzam, of pointing to the Atzam. Where do we see that? Because we explained earlier, the oil hashemesh, that the light of the sun, ein in yonoi l'tairas oetzem. Its inyan, meaning its aim, and its defining element is not simply to describe what the sun is. Kiim, rather, lifa piulas oer. This oil is essentially lifa to affect Pu'ulas oyer, the action of oyer, the effect of oyer. Not just to tell you that there is a Shemesh. Hare, once we identify it as a function, therefore we see, behold, she'eine b'bchinas gil min ha'etzem. It is not b'bchinas, it is not in the category of being a gil min ha'etzem and just a revelation from the etzem. It is not pointing to the etzem, it is identifying itself for its own function. V'chein, and similarly, oy v'chayes ha-nefesh, the light and life force of the nefesh, the effect of the life, harei ein yonehu, the chayes of the chayes that the nefesh itself has, the life element of the nefesh is in yonei, its aim is lifoil piyulas achayes. It is to affect the function of chayes. Bring life into the guf. It is not merely chayes defining what nefesh is. It is chayes that says what the effect of its presence is. So even though these are oir, but in the oir itself, there's the element that it has a functional purpose to affect something outside of itself. Therefore, I'm just going to summarize because it goes along. Therefore, it means that this is not just simply oir, pure oir, identifying the etzem. It has also a functional aspect, a piyula aspect, a shefa aspect, to be effective. And the similar yin is l'mayla. This k'moy kein l'mayla is a reminder to us that this whole discussion started from the question of what is the meaning from Eirin Seif. All these Mashalim came to try to give us a means to understand and to relate to the concept of Eirin Seif. So we discussed the from oil and so forth. And after all that, we said that oil is not purely oil. There is a shafa aspect in it, also an effect. And this Indian is true Lamala also. Harineda, haloi neda, is it not known? Shegam hoir makiv, that even the oir makiv, even the superior oir, that is above hislapshus, above mitzias, the oil that is reflective of the etzem, poyil piyulas boyelomis, also has an effect in the world. So therefore, it is not merely alluding to the etzem, but actually it brings a certain effect. It has an effect on the world.